Hello, my love. Welcome to another episode of Blisstopia podcast. I am your host, Mercedes Castellani, and I am so happy to be introducing so many changes into the podcast from this week onwards. So, this episode feels really amazing, feels like a pivotal point in the history of Blisstopia podcast. And what I want to share with you today is all of the changes that I will be introducing into the podcast from now on. So let's start by the very beginning. What is Blisstopia? What is the reason for this podcast? And why I'm doing the changes that I'm doing right now? So let's start by the very, very, very beginning. What is Blisstopia? Blisstopia is my vision for the world, my vision for humanity. And Blisstopia sits between utopia, the place where we want to live, this ideal place, beautiful place where we want to live. But by definition, utopia is impossible. Utopia doesn't exist, it's just not possible to access. And on the other hand, you have dystopia. Dystopia is the place where we will end up if we don't change fast enough, if we continue to consume in the way that we consume, and if we continue to live in a mindless manner. And this place could eventually exist in the future if we continue to live in this way. So, what I am suggesting is something in the middle, which is Blisstopia. Blisstopia is the place that starts within, but very quickly will expand into the outside. What do I mean by within? Within means that in Blisstopia, people feel blissful, happy, aligned with their purpose. They feel free, they feel super high vibe, they feel amazing. And they live in a sustainable and inclusive way. And my hypothesis is that when we feel happy, when we feel truly happy, we are immediately generous and we are sharing that happiness and that high vibe and that abundance with the external world. So Blisstopia starts within, but very quickly it's going to have an impact on the outside world. So my reason to have a coaching business is so that I can transform and help transform as many people as possible so that they can be in this blissful, aligned, happy, abundant state so that all together we can build this amazing world together. So that is Blisstopia. If you want to hear and understand more about Blisstopia in detail, you can go back to episode 28, where I share way more in detail what Blisstopia is. So if you're curious about that, feel free to go back to episode 28. So that is Blisstopia. And when I started thinking about this podcast and what I wanted to offer to the world through this podcast, my main idea was, okay, this is Blisstopia, right? This is the world that we are building together. This is my vision for the world and the reason why I'm doing everything that I'm doing. Now, how can I help people reach Blisstopia, right? So one way, of course, is to work with me through coaching, and you will feel way better. You will feel blissful, happy, abundant. And that is one way. But also, I wanted to offer this very accessible, free way to really add value to people so that we can find that inner state within ourselves, but at the same time, start building this amazing vision for the world. So, when I started dreaming about this podcast, and when I launched this podcast back in May 2022, I thought, okay, I will offer 3 formats. We're going to have meditations, we're going to have reflections, and we're going to have interviews. So you see that in the very beginning of each episode, I'm always putting meditation slash blah, 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 reflections blah, slash blah, 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 blah. So what I haven't been doing up until now was the interviews. And The reason why I haven't been doing this up until now, it's because I had so many topics to talk about and so many meditations to talk about that I was like, okay, let's start with this. Let's start with meditations and reflections. And eventually, I'm going to launch the interviews as well. Well, the time has come. I am ready to launch the interviews. And what I want to offer with each of these formats is the following. Through the meditations, you can actually tap into certain frequencies. You can tap into the frequency of love. You can tap into the frequency of abundance. You can tap into peace. You can tap into enlightenment. You can tap into joy. So, meditations really allow you to set yourself into that frequency, right? And if you've been following me for a while, you know that I love meditation. It's a huge part of my transformation. And of course, I'm going to offer meditations because that's what worked for me. That's what it's working for my clients. And I want to offer meditation to as many people as possible. So through meditations, you can tap into this frequency, right? You can feel what Blisstopia is on the inside. Now, the second format, which are the reflections, is when I sit on a solo episode, just like this one, and I'm sharing all of these thoughts and ideas on what Blisstopia is, some of the challenges that you might face in your journey to Blisstopia, in your journey, in your spiritual journey. But let's say that reflections are more of an intellectual point of view, right? So with meditation, you tap into this frequency. With reflections, it's more of an intellectual exchange, right? I'm sharing some perspectives with you. I love when you guys write back to me on Instagram and you're telling me your perspectives about things, or when you answer to the polls that I am putting on the show, so that we can have this conversation, right? I don't want it to be one way. I really want this to be a bilateral communication. So I really love when you share, you send me a message on Instagram, or you answer to one of the polls that you have on Spotify, for example. And we can really have this conversation about different things, about Blisstopia, about some of the challenges that we are facing when we are on the spiritual journey. And then this third format that I am launching from next week onwards, it's going to be the interviews. And the reason why I decided to create this episode sort of in between is to really explain what we are doing with the interviews so that you can really understand what is the purpose and what is the value that these people are bringing into your life. So on the interviews, my idea is to interview people who are already living in Blisstopia. What does this mean? We said that in Blisstopia, people feel blissful, people feel happy, people feel high vibe, people are super abundant. We love abundance, right? People feel free and they live in sustainable and inclusive ways. So, what I want to bring into the show is people who are already living in Blisstopia, people who are already embodying this way of living, this lifestyle, people who already feel blissful and how they manage to get into that place, people who already feel free and what were the steps that they had to take in order to feel truly, truly free, people who feel super high vibes. And how did they get to that point? People who live in sustainable ways, people who have started business that are linked to their purpose, people who are living in inclusive ways. So I'm really going to bring the most amazing guests. You have no idea how amazing these people are. And they will come to the show. They are going to share their stories, their challenges, their suffering, their trauma, their ideas, their illusions, so that we can really understand how they manage to embody that, so that we can be inspired from these people. So these people are going to come into the show, they're going to share their beautiful stories, about how they are embodying Blisstopia right now. And we are going to learn so much from them. Now, when I choose the guests for Blisstopia podcast, of course, we're talking about many things, right? We're talking about people who feel blissful and free and high vibes and abundant and live sustainably and live in an inclusive way. It is so many things. And it is, of course, a challenge to live with all of these different beautiful ideas that we have, right? So, what I have chosen is people who really excel in one of these things. For example, I will probably bring someone who has really mastered abundance and became a self made millionaire. So, this person really embodies abundance. This person is amazing and has a lot to teach to us in regards to abundance. This person might not be living in an inclusive way or sustainably, or is not always happy, or is not fully free. We don't know. But what I want is to bring people who are really, really excelling, who are really embodying one of these things in their full capacity, so that we can really take that variable, so to speak, and really bring the exercise to the maximum. So I will choose people who are living sustainably, and they're going to tell us everything about that. People who are really living in inclusive ways, who really have an impact in their jobs because they're working with inclusion and they're creating actual changes in regards to this topic, or people who are absolutely free and how they manage to live in such freedom. What were the things that they had to get rid of and how they managed to live so freely? So, again, with each of the guests, we are choosing one of these pillars that we have in Blisstopia so that we can really take that pillar to its fullest expression. So in each of the podcasts, I will be telling you, okay, here we're going to be talking about freedom. Here we're going to be talking about abundance. Here we're going to be talking about sustainability or inclusion. So you will know which of these pillars we're really taking to its fullest expression so that we can really tune into that frequency. We can really learn from this person what it feels to embody that beautiful pillar, what it feels to embody bliss, what it feels to embody freedom, what it feels to embody love, what it feels to embody fully feminine energies, maybe, what it feels to embody abundance. And we're going to learn from amazing people what it feels to embody sustainability, what it feels to embody inclusion. So, again, each of these guests is going to bring one of those pillars to their fullest expression. And I am so excited to bring these people into the show, to have these beautiful conversations with them. These conversations are going to be so inspiring and uplifting. I am sure that you're going to love them. These topics are going to be really, really, really interesting. My questions are always going to be super deep. You know that I'm here for the deep transformation and I love deep conversations. So we're going to have such juicy conversations. I just cannot wait to share all of this with you. So this is going to be such a fun ride. So we are going to have so much fun with these conversations. And so that is the first change that we're doing on the podcast right now. We are launching a third format, the interviews. So now in the podcast, you're going to see meditations slash meditation, reflections slash the reflection, interviews slash the title of the interview, and the guests that we are going to have. The second change and upgrade that I will be introducing into the show is the video format. As you can see, we have video now. So we're just going to have a lot of fun with that because I think videos add a different layer of intimacy because we get to not only hear the voice, but also see the full expression of someone. So I think this is particularly important for our guests. And I really want us to savor those conversations as much as possible. So I'm introducing also the video format in the podcast for those of you who are visual and who want to have more of this Blisstopia experience. So these are the changes that I am introducing in the podcast as of this week. Our first interview will be out next week on April 19th, 2024. I am so excited for you to listen to these conversations. We're really going to have so much fun. I'm already having so much fun, researching for all the different people that we're going to be interviewing, the topics that we're going to be talking about, all the questions that I want to ask to these people, so that together we can bring so much value and inspiration for you. So before we say goodbye on this episode, I want to share with you that I currently have 2 coaching spots that are available for my one-on-one live coaching process. We will work together for 3 months. We can choose one area of your life, whether that is love, career, finding your purpose, creating your own business, health, spirituality. We choose one of those topics, one of those areas of your life, and we are going to absolutely up-level that area of your life. If you're having issues in love, let's do it. Let's find your person. If you want to find your purpose, let's do it. Let's find your purpose. Let's do this. If you want to have a change in your career, let's do this. Let's change. If you want to start having healthy habits, more self-love, let's do it. Your life is going to be so much better after this. So if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you've been on my world, on Instagram, following me for a while, I open spots every couple of months and they tend to fill pretty quickly. So if you were thinking about it, this is the time. The quickest we do this, the quickest we start, the quickest your life is going to be transformed. So do not wait, do not procrastinate. Book your discovery call now. So you can DM me at mercedes.castellani with the word coaching, and I will share you the link with you so that you can book a discovery call. Thank you so much for tuning into this special episode with special announcements for the podcast. I will see you next week with our first guest. And in the meantime, in Blisstopia we trust.